After a long, tough summer of disastrous bushfires, federal parliament is back.
Oh my goodness, hi.
So what are our politicians talking about? Leadership contests, of course.
What I am putting my hand up for is the deputy leadership position.
No, I've already said no, I'm not running for deputy.
As often happens in politics, the fallout from the sports rorts affair and the subsequent departure of Bridget McKenzie from the Cabinet and as National's deputy leader,
well, yesterday I resigned my ministry.
Immediately resulted in a brawl over the National's leadership rather than the substantive issues of how the government uses our money. The spectre of Barnaby Joyce returning to the National's leadership only added to the sense of Groundhog Day.
If there's a spill, Koshy, then I'll put my hand up.
When did he say that?
He said that this morning.
OK, well, I'll have to digest that.
The Prime Minister's press conference late yesterday, in which he announced Mackenzie's departure on the basis of a breach of ministerial standards over one particular sports grant, has raised more disturbing questions about the government's approach to distributing grants to community organisations.
The Secretary concluded that the timing is such that the potential conflict should have been clear, this is in relation to the gun club membership, to the Minister by failing to put appropriate arrangements in place to avoid the potential for conflict, such as asking another Minister to make any decisions relating to organisations of which he was a member. The Minister had failed to do that, and the Secretary found that this was in breach of the ministerial standards.
As the sports rorts affair heated up last month, the Prime Minister directed his Departmental Secretary Phil Gaetjens to review the Auditor-General's report on the $100 million of community sports grants purely from the perspective of whether any ministerial standards had been breached. The effect of this was to limit the questions the government was facing over the scandal and, ultimately, to give Scott Morrison the capacity to isolate Bridget McKenzie on the issue. But Mr Morrison flatly refuses to release Mr Gaetjens' report.
I can see many good reasons why it would be kept in secret. It's entirely possible that Senator McKenzie is someone who's being held out merely as the sacrificial lamb.
For people like Ron Cole at the Kyneton District Soccer Club, these things are probably technicalities.
The ground just becomes wet, too wet, unplayable, and we have to transfer games away sometimes.
The club's application got a score of 87 in Sport Australia's independent assessment, among the highest, but received no funding.
It probably took well over 200 hours, I would imagine, of hard work to put the application together. And I'd just like an answer, a direct, straight answer from, well, not so much Bridget McKenzie now because she's gone, but from Scott Morrison himself, just to get out and tell us why, with a score of 87, can you actually tell us why we didn't get the funding, why we missed out?
A ministerial resignation might capture headlines, but it doesn't answer these important questions about the way the whole scheme was run. The important story out of the PM's press conference yesterday concerns the yawning gap between the findings of the Auditor-General, who uncovered a systemic bias to marginal seats, and what we know of Mr Gaetjens' findings. The Auditor-General's job is one of the oldest in the Commonwealth, dating right back to 1901. The Auditor-General reports to the Parliament rather than the government of the day, and has a long history of investigating such schemes. The Audit Office has the power to set its own terms of reference. By comparison, Mr Gaetjens, as the country's most senior public servant, serves and reports to the government of the day, and his terms of reference, set by the government, were narrowly constrained to the question of breaches of ministerial standards. By refusing to release Mr Gaetjens' report, the Prime Minister has left the country's most senior bureaucrat open to criticism over the findings Mr Morrison says he has made. It's not just Bridget McKenzie that has been thrown under the bus, but the reputation of his department head. Public officials have been used as human shields by politicians in the past, but the potential damage to the perceptions of the impartiality of the public service this time around is serious. And, of course, taxpayers have a right to know what Mr Gaetjens actually said, not just what the Prime Minister chooses to release. But for now, the next 24 hours will be consumed by the drama surrounding the National's leadership.
We need to get through tomorrow, unite as a party, and get back to focusing on the bushfires, on the drought, on the infrastructure issues, on the health and education issues that exist in regional Australia. We're at our best when we're working hard together as National Party colleagues.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.